yeah, we might get these replacements, but if these replacements aren't easing people's minds on concerns they have on social media, that's going to be a tough thing. And their work is going to really have to speak for itself to appease everyone. And that's a quite challenging thing to do.
Oh no, there's another squad attacking.
Welcome to the Third Party, an Apex Legends podcast hosted by myself, Shay, and joined as always by my co-host, Henry. Henry, man, how you doing in this snowy weather?
I'm doing good. Happy New Year to everybody. This episode will be coming out on the 1st, so it's a good thing we made it. I'm glad you're here and listening. I'm looking forward to an awesome 2022.
Seriously looking forward to it. Hopefully everyone's got their resolutions down and nobody's broken them already. There's always a couple people out there, but hopefully you're staying true to yourself. We got a fun episode though. Today we're looking back at 2021 and kind of talking about some of our favorite things, what happened. And then we're going to be looking forward to what 2022 may have to offer, maybe putting together a little bit of a wish list for Apex per se. But yeah, if you want a question answered on the show, leave it in the form of a 5-star review on Apple Pods and we'll make sure it makes it on there.
Also, check out our Patreon going into the new year. We really support all of our loyal fans supporting us on Patreon. Later this month, we'll be having our first ever private server tournament. Really excited about it. Go check it out.
No doubt about it. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be so fun. With that, though, let's get 2021 and talk about it a little bit. Highs and lows, maybe. I know there's been some lows lately, but we can't forget some of the great things that have happened.
Yeah, let's take a look at the seasons that we've had this year in 2021 and break down really what we got. Starting with season 8, we got new legend Fuse. We also got the Champions Edition that we are really big fans of. Both of us had to purchase it on the PC when we made the switch. But we also got the 30-30 repeater, new marksman. In the game, we got a King's Canyon update, which brought us the explosive holds, which pretty much cement King's Canyon as my favorite map. Bangalore's Heirloom also came in Season 8, as well as the Battle Pass Longbow reactive skin. Kind of a strange one, but worked out in the end. This was also the season that we had the most popular collection event in Apex history, Chaos Theory, with the only limited time mode of the year, Ring Fury Escalation.
Yeah, this year and this season, it was not the year of LTMs. It was the year of weapons. That's for sure. And something that I think, talk about what you want. That's a pretty cool thing to get, though, out of Apex. But Season 8 was fun. Fuse kind of fell flat off the start, which kind of sucked. But I think he's kind of come around, found a little bit of a niche audience, some success in arenas and like Winter Express, the LTMs that kind of have that smaller environment per se. But overall, like you mentioned, explosive hold update, nice heirloom. I think we got a lot of cool stuff in the season, and we started off 2021 in a strong way.
Yeah, Season 8 was really interesting because it was the anniversary event or the anniversary season, and it really kind of just built throughout the season. We didn't get all the balancing and content that we wanted up front, but really at the end of the season, it really tied up to be a really solid season of Apex.
Well said.
But moving on, we had Season 9, and this is where we got Valkyrie. Really cool legend. Very exciting. We also got the Bosec bow, arenas. We got Revenant's Heirloom, and then the Battle Pass reactive skin for the Devotion. Really cool.
This was one of our, I think, like most hype seasons in terms of like what we ended up getting, because we were such big Valk fans, early on. Very much in support of her. Henry was all on she's gonna be played in comp, and it took some time, but now she's there, and so definitely interesting in that way. Really great legend. The bow was something everyone knows I was looking forward to, and it hit hard at the beginning. Like that first week or so, however long it was before the bow got nerfed, was such a crazy time of Apex where every single person playing the game was just shooting a bow and arrow around. It felt like a different environment in general, which I think was really fun. It almost felt like an LTM in ways and how much the bow was being used early on in that season. Obviously, it got patched and now the bow's in more of a fun kind of like just mix it up kind of place. We're still like pretty good fans of it, but that first week of the bow was crazy.
Yeah, I think we had the bow teased for us in season 5. Is that true?
Yeah.
In the
Well, because we
back
got
of
it was accidentally in one of the dev trailers early
mhm,
on. And I
mhm.
believe you're right. I think it was season 5.
So it took a while, but we finally got it. Shay was really excited. I was just puzzled. I thought, how are they ever going to balance a bow with
Yeah.
weapons? It seems so crazy to me that they would be able to achieve it. And when it was released, it was not balanced. It is still a very strong weapon. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to undermine it in any way. The bow is fun to use. It's a little bit challenging, but it still packs a punch. On release, it did 70 damage to the body, which is
It
the
was
same as the
ridiculous.
Sentinel, except it fires like a lot
Rapidly
faster and
and
there's no
never reloaded.
reload.
Yeah.
So it's like it came out a little strong. Now it's at 60 to the body, which more than a longbow, like it's still
Mm-hmm.
strong. But the
It still
70
hits.
was ridiculous. And that took the shots to kill down.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna
it,
say.
it was too much.
It was a
Um,
lot. Well, let's talk about arenas though. That's probably an
yeah.
important thing we should talk about the introduction. And we don't need to go too in depth because we are going to be talking about arenas in a little bit on the back half of the show in depth, but the introduction of this was groundbreaking in that we got a new permanent mode for the first time ever and it wasn't a BR. Like that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about it more. But this was something that we were giddy about, but nervous. We had been
Mhm.
told for a year that can't split up the player base, can't take
Yeah.
it for the
Mhm.
playlist. It's going to be bad. You're going to have long queue times. Um, there was a lot of hesitation built around it. But when it finally came, we were really excited. We got like custom maps for it, which was more
Mhm.
than we had thought we would get because we'd had so many BR maps leaked and teased.
Yeah.
So this was pretty exciting. And the buy system blew
It
our
was crazy.
mind. Had
Mhm.
no idea something that robust was going to come into Apex and really blew us away. Like really complex, really well to balance legend abilities. We were pumped.
The only true con early with arenas in season 9 was the lack of a rank system. I think it
Hmm.
kept getting delayed, and we'll talk about maybe why it got delayed later.
Yeah. Next season, season 10. This was the season that we got Seer. We also got
Hmm.
the Rampage as a new weapon. We finally got ranked arenas. And then we had an update to World's Edge. We had no more of the train terminals. So at Refinery, at
Hmm.
Sorting, Train Yard, all of those big buildings got ripped away and were replaced by some gondolas at the first two. And then Train Yard pretty much is a no go zone right now. But we also got Rampart's Heirloom, and which was very, very cool. Rampart Town Takeover and the Battle
Yep.
Pass skin for the Volt.
This was a good one.
Pretty awesome season,
Hmm.
honestly. I think that this is playing to a lot of the things that I like. I like LMGs. I love the Rampage. I love Rampart. We all love World's Edge. Love the Volt. So solid season, I would say, if you look at it from the bird's eye view.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things about this season is that I felt like it was very eye opening for the two of us. The way in which the game was going to balance going forward
Mm-hmm.
after kind of the loss of our lead game designer and some, we've had a lot of staff turnover during this 2021 and it kind of built into this season as well. And this was really interesting to see how Seer was balanced and patched early on. And it was this indicator of the community is going to have a big impact and the pros are going to be vocal and what they say is going to particularly alter how things go and the negativity will potentially shine through. And we got hit with a really big Seer nerf that's taken him out of the meta entirely from the tippity top. And I think it was just a really interesting experience to look at that season from a nutshell and see, man, we haven't had anything balanced like this before, truly, in the past. And that was quite interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a new age of Apex balancing. I think that the issue here is twofold with Seer. It was a really fast response that was definitely inspired by community feedback that we think, from our perspective, was misinformed. Perhaps the data was, really screaming in alliance with the masses. But the double hit on this was the fact that 4 months later, when they needed to revive Seer at the bottom of the pick rate, they
Hmm.
just reverted the trigger time or the activation time of the tactical, which at this point, he needs a full defibrillation. Like,
Yeah.
really need to bring him back. So it's too bad that that's kind of how he's been treated. But hopefully, we'll look forward to more informed balancing that tries to give everybody a fair shake.
No doubt. And shout out to Big Mod. Like a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic town takeover, introduced a really cool feature into the game that is not fully there now anymore with the change to the weapons and the magazines and the reload time. But overall, just a really cool feature added to the game there for a little bit and a absolutely beautiful town takeover. They kept improving.
100% agree with that. Season 11, is our current season. We got Ash, we got the car SMG, incredible weapon.
Hmm.
Storm Point, brand new map. I mean, how can you not be excited about that? Watson heirloom, and then a Prowler skin in the battle pass. Quite the season, I have
Hmm.
to say. We just talked about Seer kind of getting that initial public outcry and
Hmm.
then a quick nerf. Ash, there was outcry over her
Yeah.
passive. There were a lot of top streamers, a lot of people that really hated this ability. We got to play early this season,
Hmm.
so we had kind of
Hmm.
touched Ash before. We weren't really sold that her passive was gonna, tear the game right open. Um, Evidently, it hasn't. So Ash didn't get hit with that early nerf, but has still started to slide down into the middle of the pack, which honestly is a huge win. And I think
Yeah.
perhaps it got lost in all the staffing changes and turnover that we've had, but maybe it was an example of amazing restraint from the balancing
Hmm.
team to try to block out all those voices.
Season 11 is going to be a turning point going into the future of this will be an indicator for, I think, how we're going to be able to define 2022 in terms of we lost a lot of the main staples of who made Apex and who is leading Respawn. We lost our community guy. We lost the co-founder, like officially. We lost producer. Like it's a rough season for staff turnover. And really, from the research we've done, is signaling more of a EA is going to be leading the charge on Apex going forward. And I don't think Henry and I are ready to say that's going to be good or bad for anything yet, but I just think that's kind of it's going to be a marking point. And when we look back at when we look back at 2022 at the end of it, we'll be able to, I think, say, oh man, season 11 was kind of like the starting point for something at least. And it was quite interesting. And on top of that, the new map designed for comp essentially. We'll see how that plays out in 2022. And the car introduced in a really unique way with this crazy cool feature. So it was a really interesting season in terms of maybe looking at a sneak peek into what we can expect for this next year.
Yeah, there's big shoes to fill. But
Mm-hmm.
Shay and I have been fans of pretty much any project Respawn has been on, except for that weird Medal of Honor VR game.
VR one,
Um,
yeah.
but outside of that, I mean, we've loved what Respawn has put out, hoping that even though a lot of those core folks are no longer working on the team, that they can be replaced and that we can
Mm-hmm.
keep Apex on the rise going into this new year.
No doubt.
I have to kind of mention a little bit about, we went through the 4 seasons, what happened in this last year, but how did Apex's popularity change over time?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Season 8 started out pretty solid. We had a little bit of a peak at that collection event, which still to
Mm-hmm.
this day puzzles us. But then the peak of
Crazy.
2021 was Season 9.
Mm-hmm.
May be obvious to some. Arenas, Valkyrie was a very hyped legend. Timing is also everything. I think that this cycle
Yeah.
is probably going to repeat itself. It has in the past. And then we went on a downhill slope in terms of what the peaks were on season releases for season 10 and season 11. I honestly was a little disappointed. I thought that maps would bring a lot more attention in terms of bringing new players in. However, we've talked about this on a few recent episodes about the competition right now in the Battle
Fierce.
Royale and the
Mhm.
shooter genre and the holiday season. Free-to-play games are not where it's at. It's just not even worth competing, is what it seems like is being shown from the Respawn team. So makes some sense, but I am a little shocked that a new map didn't bring as many people as released in arenas at a better time in the year. So I think timing is everything, is the takeaway from looking at the last year.
Timing's everything, and I hope it is a motivator of what is going to be needed in this next year. Even more content, even more balancing. If we want to compete with games that aren't going away anytime soon and titles that are going to continue to be released in the next year as well. And so it'll be interesting. I think I'm with you in that I wouldn't be surprised if this was mirrored in 2022 as well. But we got some Respawn folks on Twitter kind of talking about, what do you guys want? Like, what do you want? More LTMs? What kind of LTMs do you guys want? And kind of things heading into the game, and we'll talk about that on the back half of this episode.
Now, some highlights of 2021 to
Yup.
kind of look at those last 4 seasons. What are the good things? Number one, arenas was a massive leap forwards. This is unlocking a new way to play everything that we love about Apex: the mobility, the legends, the movement, the weapons. You love it. So that was huge. Number
Arenas was
two,
great. Yeah.
Number two, Titanfall lore finally really coming in
Woo.
to the light with Valkyrie and Ash is awesome to see. I think we've always liked the lore of Apex, but having those callbacks to Titanfall is something that at least gets us excited. So that was a highlight for sure.
Jack Cooper 2022.
Let's do
Right?
it. Let's
That's
do
the
it. Let's
hope.
make it happen in some way.
In some way,
we
yeah.
have to. But the next one is that Apex really won over a lot of massive influencers over
Yeah.
2021 and dominated Fortnite and Warzone over the year. If we kind of look at the totality, average concurrent viewers on Twitch, Apex stood up really, really well against these massive franchises with teams much, much larger.
I mean, Apex's main headline streamer now, Nick Merckx, was not playing Apex at the beginning of the year, but he's going to be topping the Apex chart almost every time he turns the stream on, bringing over Tfue. We had Tim the Tatman playing for a little bit. Ninja had a sporadic appearance. Doc even turned it back on for a day or two before he uninstalled. It's been a good year, but Nick and Tfue seem to be here to stay. Nick's trying to play competitive ALGS Apex, and that's only good. Streamers playing your favorite game is very good for the health of the community.
Yeah, it really is. So that was a major win. The other thing that is maybe overlooked by a lot of players that haven't maybe been around since day one, but even some of the day ones may have forgotten about this. This year has been insane for weapons. We've gotten so many. Out of 4 seasons, we've gotten 4 new weapons. You turn back the clock and you say that in season 4 or 5, no
Crazy.
way. No way are you going to rattle the weapon pool that aggressively with that many weapons. And the fact that it's happened and we've come out on the other end happy, and you're not feeling like, oh, I can never find an R301, oh, these weapons are dumb and kind of just filler. Honestly, even the 3030 has a place in Apex.
It has fans too.
Yeah. So it's been a major win is the weapons for this last year. And I'm beyond curious if we're going to keep this pace up even one more season. I just feel like
it has to stop.
It's such a shock to me, honestly. Yeah,
I'm with you.
We loved the bow, still loving the Rampage since release, and the car is a beauty. So, can they keep on hitting home runs, or do they need to take a break? I'm not sure, but it's evident that there's a lot of weapons in the pipeline, and that's a major piece of content that is a priority for the Apex team.
Gonna be crazy to see what happens to the loot pool going forward if we keep adding guns. Then that is for sure. I'm quite excited to see.
Yeah. Some smaller changes that aren't legends or new weapons that happened in the last year that we have to point out that have just increased the quality of life, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the ultimate ping
Yep.
to show what your charge is when you have it. I think it makes it so much easier to play with teammates or solo queuing. I love this. And I kid you not, even when I play by myself, no fill, I ping it because I
You
love
have
hearing it.
to.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
my ultimate's ready. It's a great feature and definitely a highlight of the last year.
I agree 100%.
We also, in season 8, got the damage tracker, which at the time, at least around here, was a bit controversial. We thought maybe
Mm-hmm.
this is going to majorly rattle what that 4K badge looks like and the 2K badge. Being able to have that information might change the way people play. But I think it's been a welcome change. The fact that you can now see your damage has been helpful and has been cool to kind of be able to tell your teammates, oh, I'm having a pretty cool game,
Mm-hmm.
and to maybe keep others in check that they got to do more damage.
It was just a feature people have asked for a long time. Same with the change in colors on your site, like, and just ones that are good. And it's nice to finally get them. And the damage tracker is one that people talk about a ton as still being helpful. So have to mention it as an impactful change of 2021.
The last one, maybe the biggest quality of life change that we've
Mm-hmm.
ever had in Apex, happened this last year.
Outside of
And
Evo, like,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
it really is just even elevating Evo in general and making it more approachable. But starter kits, this was huge in season 9. Dropping in with armor, dropping in with a helmet, knockdown shield, all that stuff. It's crazy. You know, the fact that we no
Mm-hmm.
longer have white helmets or knockdown shields in the loot pool. This was a massive improvement to the game.
It was great to finally see the people that were complaining about, I hate when I drop in and open a bin and I get a white helmet or a white knockdown shield in there. Just removing kind of that stuff that doesn't really move the needle in any way, shape, or
Mhm.
form in the game is really nice for the health of it. And yeah, this was a cool change that really did alter how you can think about playing the early game. You have a little bit more flexibility with the heals in combo with the
Yeah,
armor. Mm-hmm.
totally. I think that on top of the starter kits, having changes to the replicator and changes to armor,
Mm-hmm.
evolution points, this year in review means that the time to kill in Apex has increased in duration. That you really are not set up with blue armor going into the middle and late game. You used to be able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is much less likely that you're even going to have a fighting chance because of how many routes there are to improve your armor, how quickly you can start leveling it up. That's something that has definitely been palpable in playing Apex, that it has expanded. The armor is a more important part of the game that you should be focusing on because you have a lot of routes of doing so.
Yeah, and there's ripple effects with that. People have
Mhm.
seemed to really struggle to hit 20 bombs in the same way because more people got armor, but people are hitting 4K badges a lot more easily. It seems like in terms of just what you're hearing the community say, and so I think it is interesting to look at what that change might have done just for general gameplay. Let's talk about how Apex might improve though, and what kind of maybe went wrong in 2021. We
Yeah.
touched on a couple of them, but let's reiterate
Yeah. I mean, looking to always improve going into this
for
next
sure.
year. I think one that's already been told that it's in the works is more modes and
Mm-hmm.
more limited time game modes as well. Just keeping the fresh content coming no matter what. You know, we've had some LTMs that have flopped. We've had some that repeat themselves every year, um, things that have been improved. So it's always worth trying new stuff in order to keep the game fresh and to
Mm-hmm.
give you new ways to experience the movement.
Only recycled LTM you get a pass on now is Winter Express from here on out. Apex.
That's right. That's right. Always. Um, but in the last year, we also saw that legend balancing took a downward turn.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of players may think, oh, well, the legends are the most balanced they've ever been. That may be true, but it is a constant effort at keeping balancing at the foremost of efforts for a live game like Apex. You
Hmm.
introduce a new legend that has massive effects. You can't forget about the remaining cast because
Hmm.
there is a diehard player base behind every legend, even Watson. So it's something that
Shot
has
fired.
like gone down over the last year, but it's something that we really are optimistic going into the next year that it'll be revisited and we'll get more communication on what the strategies are for improving balance amongst the legend specifically, but also the weapons.
Balancing is more than keeping things fresh or keeping things balanced. It keeps things fresh also. Changes to the meta, that's balancing. Taking someone from the top and putting him in the middle instead, or having someone new rise to the top, that's balancing changes. And that's important to the
Yeah,
health of the diehard player base that's playing every single day of this game.
100%. Another thing that is maybe cause for improvement is this last year we had some care package shenanigans. You know,
And
the
did not approve.
Kraber's fine. Keep that forever and always. Um, the games we were playing with the Spitfire, keeping it strong, kind of dodging questions about it for months and months and months to then just throw it in the care package. That was
Replace it with
suspect.
another heavy LMG. That's
That
very
was
good.
sus. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about that kind of behavior. We're big fans of the alternator, asked for it. I think they were listening, so we finally
Hmm.
got it with disruptors. But this last season, we just
They
hit
took away
rock bottom
HP's pride and joy. Yeah.
for no reason, no reason at all. It's really a shame, and I will never forget it. So I'm tearing up a little bit just thinking about it. The fact that
Oh my
they would
god, I'm
take it
tearing up
away.
too.
With what? Why? They didn't even say, oh, this weapon's so powerful. No, they had to buff it. The first weapon to actually be buffed in a year before going to the care package was the G7. It was shameful. I hope it doesn't happen again. And next season, if the G7 isn't back on the ground, you are going to
I
hear
quit.
about it. I don't want to say anything outrageous, but
I
the
don't want to
emotions
say
will
that
be
the
high.
podcast would stop happening, but good games would make a return.
Man, it's a bad thing. So hopefully 2022 will be a better time for the care package and for the G7.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Another, area for improvement, I think, is just looking more closely at the Respawn team as it changes. We're a little cautious about the turnover in leadership and key staff, but the hope is that we get really good communication, we get solid introductions to new team players, specifically, this new game director who we haven't
Hmm.
heard of yet. This is really important to us, and I think the quality of the game. So, hoping that 2022 is the opportunity to welcome in the new team in its entirety and see what they want to do for this next year and what the direction is for Apex.
It was quite interesting to see, and it's going to be interesting to see that people have different styles when they work in gaming. That's what Henry and I have learned going into the gaming industry. I'm working in communications right now. I'm working in PR for games right now, and I'm learning about not everybody is going to have a game designer, a director, and we were very lucky to have Ryan, who led the way on social media. Really made it as easy as possible to communicate with developers on social media. That's not an incredibly normal thing to happen in gaming for the most part. It's hard to get people to do that. And so, yeah, we might get these replacements, but if these replacements aren't easing people's minds on concerns they have on social media, on Reddit AMAs, on dev streams, that's going to be a tough thing. And their work is going to really have to speak for itself to appease everyone. And that's a quite challenging thing to do. And so that's something we're kind of keeping our eye on, at least going into 2022 and seeing who kind of comes in. And if there is anyone that fills that community voice on social media, answering questions and all that kind of stuff for the fans. And I mean, since some of those folks have left, we've had a serious downtick in news talking about, hey, this developer said this on social media, this like most recently. And that's interesting, I think, to me.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Hoping to learn more very soon on
Mm.
that.
Okay, let's talk about it. We said we are going to do it a little bit earlier. The future of arenas. Arenas is tough. It did not take fire quite as we anticipated. We didn't expect BR to like be left to the side, but we felt that arenas was going to be a great avenue to introduce a massive new audience and take Apex to a new space in the esports scene. That just didn't happen. So I'm going to pose the question to you. Why do you think there was some of this letdown with arenas on what our expectations were? Were our expectations too high as well?
Yeah, our expectations are way too high. And truly, we both like arenas. The
Yeah.
ranked system definitely leaves a lot to be desired, but trying to look at it analytically, why did this happen? Why did it fall short from our expectations? The first thing is it's complicated. You have
Yeah.
a very intense buy system that is cool and gives you so many opportunities to use the weapons that you want to use to balance the game. Really like it from that standpoint. But we noticed firsthand that creating content around arenas struggle.
Really hard.
Very
Really
difficult. This
hard.
is not a casual game mode. Even outside of ranked, arenas is hard and
Hmm.
requires your nearly 100% focus. There's maybe 2 seconds each round that you could chat with your friends,
Yeah.
check your chat on
We were
stream. Like,
struggling to stream arenas
yeah,
because of that. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that ripples down to even more casual players that
Hmm.
is not super fun because you really got to focus. You got to be counting
Hmm.
your materials and thinking, oh, should I get a ban or should I go to purple or
Hmm.
on this weapon? I think that discourages players. I think that
Hmm.
it's just too intense of a buy system. And then the number two, I think, is pacing. And this is one that I don't personally experience, but I've heard a lot from newer players and more casual players in general that want to play arenas because they want the quick action. They don't want to go wait around in BR. They want to get into gunfights. And when they get into arenas, a lot of times they get into poke fights where you come to meet the other team, and then you just
Hmm.
sit there for 2 minutes before the ring comes in and poke at each other. That's boring to a lot of players,
Hmm.
and I'm cool with that because I think it replicates what you experienced in the BR, which I think
Hmm.
was the direction of arenas, but the result on what arenas is compared to across other games, I think it falls flat.
I think that's the tough thing. When you compare it to the other games, that's where you see some struggle. And whether that's fair or not, I think is a really important question. Um, but yeah, the pacing's tough. I understand it. People think of arenas as, hey, I'm gonna get in a bunch of quick fights, I'm gonna get my reps in. And there truly is a time to wait before you get to fight again. And every life counts in arenas like it does in BR. And that's interesting. What do you think can be done to improve the arena's experience? And I'll start by saying, let's not just talk about, because I think we've really set the groundwork for the expectation is an improved rank system, like for
Yeah.
arena specifically. That's a given. Outside of that, what else do you think we can get to improve arenas?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. And to be honest, haven't heard a lot of good answers.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't really heard a lot of developers think about things to try either. When I pose the question to myself, I think about maybe you simplify the buy system and remove abilities and go back to something like what Winter Express is, where abilities are on cooldown,
Yeah.
in a way
Mm-hmm.
that you can use them, but you still hope that they're balanced based off of their timers, maybe that would help. But I think better than that, better than probably anything that anybody can think of to overhaul arenas is to create something new, to try
Mm-hmm.
a new mode and see what sticks and what can be better. I think that arenas has a place and is a success in what it was
Mm-hmm.
trying to do, but it didn't catch fire as this new way to play Apex as the staple. And that's, I think, what is something we'd like to try.
The future of arenas, and I'm gonna hit it with some hard opinion here. I think the future of arenas might be a rotating mode, not a like it is not always playable. You can play arenas in conjunction with these other games modes as they filter in. And just because it hasn't had that addiction factor that the BR has, so maybe it's not worth constantly having it playable if the player base is really small, essentially. And so the rest of this episode, we're essentially going to talk about some of the things we want out of 2022 at the end here. But for a little bit, we're going to talk about the more modes, what's been kind of talked about, leaked, what we've seen in the past, and what our dream modes are, and talk about how maybe we would want something like that rotated in. And first, we're going to start by talking about the stuff we've seen in the mobile beta version of Apex, which is Team Deathmatch, what everybody loves in shooters, 6v6. In one video, it was located on the arena version of the map Artillery. It seems to have a really cool loadout feature, at least in the beta, that allows players to choose 2 of any weapons at a blue rarity attachment. TDM might just be, at its simplest form, a way to enjoy Apex in a fast-paced environment, which is maybe what Arenas is lacking. If Arenas is, hey, I want to get into as many fights as possible, maybe the answer is actually a respawn mode in general that has a little bit more quote-unquote fun, I think, than Arenas.
Yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to when the mobile game finally comes out to give this a try, because I think that Apex is both empowered by its focus on team play. You know, it's changed the gaming landscape as a whole with the ping system, with trios. Like, these were major identifiable factors in Apex that have made it stick. But not having a way to play more solo, I think, has harmed a lot of Apex's potential. So having a TDM where you don't have a team, where the stakes are a lot lower, you can have any weapon you want. It's just fast action, and you get the legends, you get the abilities, you get the movement, you get the gunplay, all the good stuff, except that core of teamwork could be a cool avenue to explore.
It's something interesting to monitor. And speaking of it, we've had some leaks throughout the year coming from a multitude of people. Our guy at Shrug leading the charge on some of it. But a new game mode is in some sort of development, but it's really not as clear as Arena's development in terms of the consistency and the timing of when we thought it might come. But it's looking like there's going to be a new mode, maybe called Capture or Control. It's being compared to Domination from Call of Duty. Got your 3 flags, A, B, and C. You capture and hold them to rack up points. A respawn-based mode. We have a one map that is Carrier, Fight Night, and Docks. So 3 POIs make up the size of the map. We have another one that is essentially Hammond Labs as the size of the map. So 2 maps essentially in development. Your teams spawn along the edge of combat areas, work in, and there would also be parking pads to summon tridents for mobility around the map. Those parking pads are actually somewhat already in the game, and we have a similar squad mode to Battlefield in that on a team of 12, you would have smaller squads that are broken up to ease legend selection and ping spam. And there's also stuff in the files for 100-player lobbies. So there's a lot in there. Essentially, when we talk about the data mine stuff and what we might be looking forward to, how does this mode to you compare to something like Team Deathmatch as something that could potentially come to the game and shake things up? Do you have a preference out of curiosity?
I'm cool with this, and I kind of like this more than the Team Deathmatch style. Not that I don't like that, but it seems to me that a Team Deathmatch is probably going to come in a form of a more arenas sized map, or
Yep.
a Battle Royale sized arenas map. Smaller. This, I really like that it keeps you on the Battle Royale map, just like Winter Express, fan favorite. But it kind of opens up the possibility to introduce objectives, which I'm really looking forward to in Apex, just because I think so many legend abilities would be incredible to use in an objective-based mode. And I like the idea of opening up the player count as well for something like this, to have a respawn mode that allows you to play objectives. But you can't dismiss the fact that there are major risks in this. Just like in Winter Express, there will be legends that completely disappear off of the game mode if you do something like this. But you'll have something that I think is very unique, very fun, and replayable I think, first and foremost. Like, that is what I think an objective based Apex game mode has to offer.
This is the fast-paced fun in a large-scale environment similar to a BR. TDM is, like you said, that smaller, maybe fun environment. And I'm curious which direction, if we get more modes, which direction the team kind of chooses to go. Maybe we get both. I don't know. I want to talk about some of our dream modes. And we're talking a lot about game modes and asking for new ones. And I just want to make it clear, like, when we're asking for modes like this and dreaming of them, it is not because of our dislike for BR or arenas, but more so just a desire to experience Apex movement, guns, legends, our absolute favorite thing in video games in as many ways as possible. And when we go play another video game, I can tell you right now, all I think about is, man, I just wish I could do this as an Apex character with the Apex movement. And so that's what we're talking about when we say dream modes for 2022, essentially. Let me rattle through some of these ones that we brainstormed, then we can touch on some of the fun ones, I think. 3v3v3, that's the first one. A kill streaks mode, TDM, capture the flag, and search and destroy. Those are the essential modes we've brainstormed. Any of those that really stand out to you that you want to touch on?
I really like the idea of a 3v3. It keeps the idea of the third party alive, and it
Yeah,
also
yeah.
echoes a lot of what I think works really well in Winter Express. So I'd love to see another version of that. Um, but a little more out there is this idea of kill streaks being
Yeah.
introduced to an Apex game mode. And this is something that we discussed on a live chat a couple weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could go a couple different routes. You could do it so that as you got kills, you unlock different abilities in your kit as a legend. I really like how Winter Express works, that you just stick with cooldowns. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what could be cool is if as you get kills, your weapons upgrade over time.
Gun
And
game.
maybe you get additional equipment as well. I think that
Mm-hmm.
it could be a really cool way to incentivize aggression and to have a fun reward for having big games. And so you
Mm-hmm.
can put it into a couple different modes. Maybe it's a team deathmatch sort of thing. But having an idea of kill streaks, I think, would be really fun to explore.
This is a really cool one. I think all these are really fun, and I think we're talking a lot about objective-based modes. And the point I want to bring up, and maybe my dream for 2022, maybe it's too soon, maybe it'll take to 2023 if we ever go down this path, is some sort of rotation for a ranked objective-based mode. I think that's my dream right now, and very much echoing the popular Call of Duty and Halo ranked modes, and essentially replacing arenas ranked is my kind of headset for that. And I like this because, one, keeping them in rotation and having multiple modes on multiple maps keeps things really fresh. And sometimes I
Mhm.
think when you play arenas, you get stale playing the exact same thing over and over and over again. And I also just think that objective based respawn modes are a lot more enjoyable for solo queuing. And that's something that obviously BR struggle with in general. That's the nature of the game. And so figuring out maybe a way to counteract that in some way, shape, or form is this, and make the solo queue experience more enjoyable for people. Because I don't think the answer is introducing a solos BR mode. That just ruins too much of what a BR is in general. This is just, hey, let's find this formula that works and put the best guns and the best legends and the best characters into it. And this is not your main staple of Apex, but this could be a nice little side thing, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Apex has innovated enough. Like, they've
Mm-hmm.
introduced the respawn feature. They've tried to solve problems that BR has faced, and they've been very successful with that. I think that it is completely okay and justifiable for them to take a page from other games and to
Mm-hmm.
introduce a more robust respawn mode in order to play to the masses. This is what the top franchises do. And I don't
Yep.
see any reason that Apex can't take a sidestep and try this as a mode. It doesn't have to take over, but
Mm-hmm.
this is a really good way to grow the game. And I think we're on the same page on that.
And they have a great avenue to do it. Introduce it as an LTM. Is it
Hmm.
incredibly hype? Does it retain players? If it does, okay, you're on to something. Now let's create
Hmm.
something more real out of it, essentially. But those are modes. We've been talking modes all the time. Let's talk about our 2022 Apex maybe wish list or wants outside of all the new creative permanent modes. So we got a nice list here. I'm gonna rattle it off and then we'll go through some of these. We got legend balancing, more of that, please. All maps in rotation in some form. Map updates, particularly looking at Olympus and Stormpoint. More town takeovers, more LTMs, cross progression, firing range changes. Those are kind of like I think the more realistic wish list is essentially what we're looking at. Talk to me a little bit about the firing range changes, particularly. I know you have some thoughts on this, pulling a little bit from what we've seen in the mobile beta version of Apex and what might make that experience more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think you could do a lot in the firing
Mm-hmm.
range. I think you could introduce time trials for hitting targets. I think you could do AI training simulations with moving dummies that are more
Mm-hmm.
accessible. I think that you could throw a building into the firing range to allow you to practice with defensive legends. I think that's completely an opportunity. And then you could also introduce a better 1v1 interface. We know that
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the biggest reason anybody goes to the firing range is to 1v1 their friends. Why not introduce a point system? Why not introduce,
Yeah.
spawns, things like that, where you don't have to switch friendly fire and do the gold knockdown? Like, why not build it for what it's being used for?
Mm-hmm. Well said. I think as we talked about, the legend balancing kind of hit a downslope here towards the end. And I think we just want that picked up. And with that is this desire and ask, hey, return to the basics of what we kind of fell in love with: legend balancing, map updates, town takeovers, and let's add some of the necessary stuff. Let's not focus on the reticle colors, and let's not focus on some of that kind of extra stuff, and let's focus on the stuff that was promised in 2021, like cross progression, and get that kind of
Mhm.
stuff in the game permanently, so we can move on to bigger and better things in the future. And Apex has a great sandbox for the future of whatever it's going to end up being, and we're excited to see where it goes this next year. Man, it's been a big one though. It's been a big 2021, and I'm looking forward to 2022.
It has. Likewise.
Let's wrap up the show, though. Let's answer some 5-star questions. The first question is coming from CCGGTT33. Hi, I really enjoy listening to this podcast every time it is available. As for my question, I'm a Wraith main and I'm quite aggressive in pubs. I've been trying more ranked lately, but I'm not really sure who to play to fit my playstyle. Do you have any recommendations? Great question.
What a good question. We try to have lots of episodes available, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
twice a week to the public, even more for the patrons. But man, why not play Wraith in ranked?
Wraith is
Uh,
a solid ranked legend for sure. She's really loved. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, like, if you want to play someone other than Wraith, the closest legends to that play style for being aggressive that fit ranked are probably like Octane and Valk, probably. And that's what I would work with. But I'm cool with Wraith as an option, personally.
yeah, I, whenever I hear from a Wraith main that they want to switch, I kind of get paralyzed because it's such a limited playstyle. You don't really
Mm-hmm.
use abilities. You don't have a very functional passive. You hardly use the ultimate until the end game. And then the tactical is pretty straightforward. Any other legend outside of maybe a few give you so much more utility. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a big world out there for legends. I think trying someone new is a good idea, even if you have an aggressive playstyle. Octane is a good idea, but Loba is equally a great
Mm-hmm.
option and someone that you can bring into ranked for a long time. So,
Heck, you can play Gibraltar. Be the aggressive
yeah,
Gibraltar with the bubble pushes and stuff as well. Like, you can take an aggressive mindset into a lot of legends in this game effectively.
yeah, very different from Wraith, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to recommend another legend that's super close because really there's nobody very close. She's kind of limited.
She's invincible.
Everybody else has a ton more stuff. Yeah, she has invincibility.
And
Other
that's
people
it.
have like 3 or 4 things they
Mm-hmm.
can do. So you kind of have to learn a lot more in transitioning to another legend, but probably worth it. Next question coming from Bro Darius. Hey guys, I've got 2 questions. One, have you ever looked at Valk skins because they have a pred mark on the right arm? And 2, what would you guys suggest doing if I encounter toxic teammates that cuss me out in chat if I mess up once?
Man, okay. Get toxic teammates, mute them. Honestly, you're gonna enjoy yourself much more than getting cussed out or playing with toxicity. Join our Discord, find teammates. That's what I gotta say. Mute. Don't hesitate. in terms of Valk skins, yeah, she's got the pred mark on her right arm, or on the right arm, and on a lot of her gear as well, because she comes from she's the daughter of an apex predator, the OG mercenary group. That is what her dad was, Viper. So yeah, I got to pay that homage all the time to the apex preds, and she gets special to rock that kind of a symbolism everywhere.
It's pretty awesome. I really like the skins that feature it for her. Definitely a cool thing in the game. I want more Ash and Valk interaction. I
Me
felt
too.
like we were going to get some voice lines because we were told we got a ton of voice lines added in game, more so than season 5 this last season, and haven't really felt that, to be honest, with the new Legend Ash. So I'd love to have more of that. But toxic teammates, yeah, don't hesitate to mute. And honestly, it can be frustrating because your teammates won't say anything, and then you're right, they'll kind of freak out. And it's too late. You're just exposed to that. And that's what happens with any multiplayer game. I'm sorry. You can go into every game mute, if it bothers you. But the thing is, you just shake it off. The people that get worked up like that, they're insecure and they're just bad. So
well said.
I feel bad for them.
They're just bad. I love it. That's facts. That's facts. Speaking facts, HB. That's going to wrap up the show, though. Thank you to our producer, The Third Party 10, who supports us over on Patreon, and subscribe on Apple Pods. Drop a follow on Spotify. Leave a 5-star review with your question. We'll answer it on our next episode. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Third Party Pod, and check us out by joining the Discord via the link in the description. Thank you so much for listening to the Third Party Podcast. We'll catch you next time. Peace.
Hey now, another squad coming in. Boom, whole squad down.
Hey, brother, not today. Maybe tomorrow.